Hey everyone, and welcome back to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here. Today, we are putting a truly massive pharmaceutical headline under the microscope. We're talking about the kind of headline that doesn't just make waves, it completely reshapes how we think about corporate consolidation on a global scale. We'll be looking at a singular, fascinating piece of reporting from the Economic Times. And honestly, it is so monumental in scale that we literally have to break down all of its moving parts just to grasp the sheer gravity of it. So grab your notes and get ready, because we are unpacking the anatomy of a real-life pharma megadeal. Okay, let's dive straight into Section 1, the $400 billion whisper. $400 billion. I mean, just let all those zeros sink in for a second. In the everyday realm of corporate finance, seeing a transaction of this scale is incredibly rare. To put it into perspective, this is a staggering financial figure that literally eclipses the entire GDP of many nations. When a number this large gets floated around, it represents a profound tectonic reshaping of an entire industry. It's a figure so vast that it immediately, and I mean instantly, commands the attention of every single analyst, regulator, and competitor out there in the global market. And that brings us exactly to the phrasing from our source today. This is the direct headline straight out of the Economic Times reporting. AstraZeneca held talks with Bristol Squibb on $400 billion Megadeal, source says. Now, notice the absolute gravity of the names involved here. You don't just throw a $400 billion price tag out into the universe unless the entities involved have the immense global infrastructure and the capital to actually back it up. This single loaded sentence is exactly what we are deconstructing today. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the pharma titans. Let's look at the key players. So the primary players in this headline are absolutely unmistakable: AstraZeneca and Bristol Squibb. According to the source, these two massive entities were brought together in these discussions, acting as the primary players in this whole scenario. We are talking about two absolute giants of the pharmaceutical industry, each packing immense, world-changing portfolios. Honestly, just the fact that these two specific titans are mentioned together in the exact same breath regarding a single transaction, that is what gives this headline its immense weight. It's a potential combination of two historic industry heavyweights. Moving right along to Section 3, Anatomy of a Megadeal. Let's break down the transaction structure. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the precise wording the source uses. They don't just call it a deal, they call it a mega deal. This term is exclusively reserved for an exceptionally large corporate transaction. A standard acquisition might be a few $billion, which, hey, is huge in its own right. But a $400 billion price tag automatically catapults this thing into an entirely different stratosphere. The term megadeal perfectly captures the sheer, unprecedented scale that we're seeing cited in the source headline. Naturally, this news falls right under the M&A or mergers and acquisitions category over at the Economic Times. But let's be real, at a $400 billion valuation, this isn't your standard everyday consolidation, it's a completely industry-altering event. Grasping this categorization is super key to understanding how power and resources attempt to centralize at the absolute highest levels of global business. A move like this, it would immediately trigger complex pipeline consolidations and invite some truly intense global antitrust scrutiny, shifting the entire competitive landscape basically overnight. And finally, Section 4, what happens next? Let's talk future implications. Look at how this builds a picture of almost espionage-level corporate mystery. These two little phrases, extracted right from the headline, held talks and source says, they carry such undeniable weight. Massive corporate moves, like a $400 billion merger, well, they don't exactly start with a flashy press release. They begin as very quiet, highly confidential conversations. The phrase held talks implies a preliminary, completely behind closed doors negotiation. And source says just perfectly highlights the anonymous, leak-driven nature of financial journalism. It really illustrates how the biggest tectonic shifts in global business begin as mere whispers in boardroom corridors long before the ink is ever dry. Which leaves us with this final, highly provocative thought. If $400 billion talks are just whispers, what does a finalized megadeal actually look like? It's just the mere rumor of AstraZeneca and Bristol Squibb talking can send absolute shockwaves through the news cycle. Imagine the global implications, the intense regulatory hurdles, and the massive industry reshaping that would happen if a deal of this magnitude ever actually crossed the finish line. It is a fascinating reminder of the staggering scale of global pharma negotiations. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those great questions, and I'll catch you next time.